Okay, hold tight, family. My name is Brother Ray. We'd like to welcome everyone to the Brooklyn William Mackey. Hello, family. My name is Brother Ray. We'd like to welcome everyone to the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club, also African Helping Africans. We meet here every other Wednesday in honor of William Mackey Jr., Brother Hassan. And a happy birthday to Attorney at War Alton Maddox, El Haj Malik Al-Shabazz, Brother Amos Wilson, Louis Ray Rivera, Minister Khalid, Dr. Ben, Gil Noble, Dr. Clark, Miss Leona Maddox, Brother Renoko Rashidi, Professor George Simmons, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, all the historians, Chancellor Williams, Renoko Rashidi. We meet here to keep their name alive. So in educational lectures and the history that they give, they went beyond the call of duty. Miss Leona Maddox, United African Movement, had an old car. She drove all the way, Teaneck, New Jersey, for the United African Movement, because she believed in lectures. She believed in bringing people together so the historians could give information so you could look up. That's what the Mackey's group and African Helping Africans is about. That was the UAM, to bring history. So we meet here for these people, so we never want to forget them, because people are leaving us, and lectures are very few. So we meet here live, and we meet here for the listening audience on Zoom. So give yourself a great big hand for coming out and supporting the Mackey's group. Last week we had a problem, and we couldn't have it, so last 2 weeks, so we had to wait 2 weeks and bring it back. So we're going to bring the camera over to the Amos collection. This is what I call the Amos Wilson collection. So Brother Sababu and African World Info Systems could continue the work of Amos. We have Blueprint for Black Power. We have the Psychology of Self-Hatred and Self-Defeat, called a Reformation of the African Mind. We have Black on Black Violence, the Psychodynamics of Black Self-Annihilation and Service of White Domination. We have the Falsification of African Consciousness, Issues of Manhood in Black and White, African-Centered Consciousness versus the New World Order. And you hear a lot about the New World Order, but nobody mentions African-Centered Consciousness versus the New World Order. Awakening the Natural Genius of Black Children, the Developmental Psychology of the Black Child. We have Distorted Truths, the Bastardization of African Cosmology, S.K. Damiani. And one of the things I love to say is Black on Black Violence. The title of Amos' classic is The Psychodynamics of Black Self-Annihilation in Service of White Domination. And whether we know it or not, or care to believe, every big city mayor, mayors in New York, Cleveland, Chicago, California, politicians, the first one to say, Black on Black Violence, wars in Africa, over CIA-funded groups, Crips and Bloods, blacks killing blacks. But nobody never fails to mention the title. It states the psychodynamics of black self-annihilation in service of white domination. So we are still dominated by other people. Now, in honor of my good friend Louis Ray Rivera, who took up the mantle when Dr. Mackey left us too soon, And Louis Ray came through and he would come down here and talk for hours. And then we would walk him home. And he'd still talk for another hour and a half. And he only lived 3 blocks away. Come out to the projects over there, knew my whole family. I miss Louis Ray and even had Maggie's group on WBAI. So we want to salute Louis Ray and his classic, Jazz in Jail. Never want to forget it. So ladies and gentlemen, I got some publications. This is for the listening audience and people who tune in to the Maggie's group and go into the lectures and get the book. It's the books and the information. In honor of Dr. Ben, Black Man of the Nile and his family. Dr. Ben's classic tells you everything about ancient Kemet in Africa and all the statues where they claim aliens built them. Come on. They're never going to stop. So we have this in honor of Dr. Ben. We also have in honor of Dr. Randy Short, The Impact of Religious Slavery Revealed. That's in honor of Dr. Randy Short. Dr. Mackey, I'm listening to a lecture and Dr. Mackey mentioned this book, A Hole in the Sheet, A Modern Woman Look at Orthodox and Hasidim Judaism, Miss Evelyn Kane. And this is an old book, boy. It'll tell you a whole lot of stuff about the Judaism and the Orthodox community. We want to salute Mrs. Kane. Also, in honor of Louis Ray Rivera and Brother Truss Graham of African Echo Study Group, Max Dumont, Jews, God, and History. And they mention this book, and I'm reading a little bit of it at a time, and a lot of stuff that they claim sort of like made up. Max Dumont, thank you very much, Max. Now, Chancellor Williams, The Destruction of Black Civilization, Great Issues of a Race from 4500 BC to 2000 AD. And Dr. Chancellor Williams in his classic points out all the mistakes and a lot of mistakes we made of those great kingdoms and civilizations in Africa, which wasn't too good. So we want to salute Dr. Chancellor Williams. Everybody, it's funny, you're not hearing too much about reparations now that the election time is coming. Before, this is Without Sanctuary, Lynching Photography in America. Without Sanctuary is a great and terrible book. It's an album of peacetime atrocities during which hundreds of Kodaks was clicked, and they have the pictures. These 2 brothers was hung. This brother was hung in Alabama. The postcards where they would gather and show us hanging by ropes. And it's documented. African Americans hanging. This brother was hung. So without sanctuary, they made postcards. Everybody brought food, and they sat there and watched the brother being fried. And when we mention reparations, they always talking about another study. And they have yet to look at this book. The tears will come out your eyes. So I want to thank Without Sanctuary for coming up with this pictorial. These publications is for the listening audience to get. Do your own research. Everywhere you turn around, you see medical marijuana. You can't walk down the street and see somebody smoking weed, puffing in front of the police, rolling up, and will curse you out if you say something. Will tell you they buying this stuff. They used to be in front of the liquor store, now they're in front of the weed shop. And they got them all in Brooklyn. And it's funny, Dr. Lyndon LaRouche, Dope Incorporated, how the British got the whole world strung out. Chinese opium drug wars, they got the Irish strung out, they got us strung out with the drugs. That's right. And on page 48, you got a young George Soros who initiating things. And every time you hear our local politicians, even got somebody that's dead set on legalizing marijuana and getting ready trying to get put in office to run the country. So it's going to be all over the place. And you wonder why our youth and our children is going crazy. It's a person behind it. And Dr. LaRouche lays it out. Dope Incorporated. I picked up another few books while, Dr. Mackey used to always say, you search for books, you look all over the place. So this is by Matt Caldwell, the man behind the curtain, inside the secret network of George Soros. And we have another one by David Horowitz and Richard Poe, The Shadow Party, how George Soros, Hillary Clinton, and 60s radicals seized control of the Democratic Party. And we have a good sister, Cynthia McKinney, who's been laid it out that Soros controls the Democratic Party and even some people in the Republican Party. So you better do your research on old King George, because he ain't no joke. And he has a son that's ready to take up the mantle. Of course, he's old, and his son is ready. His name is Alex. Ladies and gentlemen, get your pencils out, get on Amazon. Nobody's going to tell Bezos to stop selling books. Nobody's going to tell Bezos to ban books. Ain't nobody going to tell Amazon and Bezos nothing. The manufacturing of a president, the CIA insertions of Barack H. Obama into the White House, Wayne Mansfield. And I'm reading this book and it's something else. So these are information that we have out. Now, I'm going to the creme de la creme, the coupe de ville. In honor of Dr. Randy Short. In honor of Dr. Scott Whitaker out of Georgia. Kobe, look in that book and see if you got Cynthia McKinney's book. Looking at that. In the green? Cynthia McKinney. In the green? Look on the green one and the other one. We have Dr. Scott Whitaker in his classic Medicine. And it tells you all about the causes and solutions of disease, malnutrition, and the medical sins that are killing the world. In honor of Dr. Scott Whitaker out of Georgia. I have these books. Also, Cynthia McKinney should be over there. Capitalism on a Ventilator, the impact of COVID-19 in China and the US. And if you notice, they're starting to bring it up again. Cases is on the rise. So you got to look at it. You're going to replay the whole script. Anthony Fauci, the real Anthony Fauci, presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy, my man. Get the classic, the real Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, Big Pharma, and also the truth behind COVID, Dr. Joseph McCullough and Ronald Cummings. These are doctors. All I'm doing is introducing the books. They're doctors. Kennedy's blockbuster, the Wuhan cover-up, and the terrifying bioweapons arms race. We want to thank presidential candidate Kennedy for his books. Dr. Brian Hooker, Vax versus Unvax, Let the Science Speak. Brian Hooker is a PhD. He's a doctor. Senator Rand Paul, Deceptions, the Great CO cover-up. And if you go on YouTube and you watch the congressional hearings where they brought Dr. Fauci up and questioned him, this is the Senate. Go on YouTube and look at it. We want to thank Rand Paul for what he did. I don't care nothing about his family background. He had enough heart to bring stuff out. When people say, oh, his family background, that don't mean nothing to me. He had enough heart to bring out because nobody's talking about it. Edward Dow, you don't see it, Coben? Don't worry about it if it's not there. Look in the plastic. Look in the plastic over there. It's not there?
No, it's DVD.
Okay. Causes unknown. The epidemic of sudden death syndrome. 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. It's going to be in the 26. We want to give Edward Dow, forwarded by Kennedy, and it has the pictures of a whole lot of youngsters. So this book is excellent. In honor of Io Kamati, the irritated genie, he has a book, Jews Are the Problem. It's a small read, but it's an excellent publication, and I want to thank him for coming out and writing this book, because books are everywhere. They're not hiding what they're doing. So I want to thank Io Kamati and his classic, and from what I understand, it's going to be a part 2 coming out in Baltimore. The book signing is going to be next week, the 4th, at the Terra Cafe in Baltimore. Io will be there. So we have that coming up. Now, I'm going to give a few programs that the listening audience can tune into and go in for yourself, do your research, and get information. Every Thursday, the hottest show on the East Coast. Ted, Keisha, Brother Ashe, Brother Blacksmith, and Sister Marcia, a.k.a. Sister Mama, I gave her the nickname. That's one of the hottest shows on the East Coast, and it comes on at 8 o'clock every Thursday. Every Thursday on Facebook Live. We want to thank Sister Keisha. Also, every Saturday, our Philadelphia Connection, Blog Talk Radio with Sister Empress Chi and Brother Lumumba and our good people, Sister Pam out of Philly. They have Blog Talk Radio, and it also comes on Zoom. That's every Saturday at 10:30, and they had a few good programs on that was coming on. And the telephone number is 1-319-527-6189. Sister Empress and our Philadelphia Connection is really keeping it live. Io Kamati, every Monday at 10 o'clock a.m., Birmingham, Alabama, with Dr. Anthony Muhammad, WSYP 95.1 FM, Sankofa Revolutionary Radio. And that's the call-in program. Brother Io does his program at 10 o'clock, and you can call in and get in on the conversation. So that's a wonderful program. Our Baltimore Connection, our powerhouse, State of the City, Darren Muhammad, comes on every Saturday at 12 o'clock. TuneIn Radio. It also comes on Spreaker, it comes on Facebook, and it comes on Instagram under Darren Muhammad State of the City. Sometimes it comes on Thursday and Friday. So our powerhouse brother Darren is laying out some excellent information, and it's for the listening audience. It comes on Wednesday, sometime Thursday, and a lot of stuff is going on. So as he says, get your popcorn and get your peanuts, because a lot of stuff is going on with this election, and all the psyopses and everything is repeating itself. So it's going to be a good time, because whether we know it or not, this is a fight for the minds of black people, the ones that's always being left in last place. While we vote, while they tell us to vote, and they put others first and put us last. So every 4 years, they have a race for the minds of black folks, African American, to be Pacific. and we never did a damn thing for it. Every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, Dr. Aline, Your Immunity Program. That comes on 7 o'clock, Your Immunity Project, and Dr. Aline, California Radio, he's kicking out some good stuff, so that's another program that comes on. Now, Fridays, we have African Echo Study Group with Brother Trust Graham and the African Echoes family, Danny, True, and all the gang, coming in on Friday out of Newark, New Jersey. And that comes on 8 o'clock. Usually it's the same password and ID, and Brother Trust Graham and them is doing the psychology of self-hatred and self-defeat toward a reclamation of the African mind, and a lot of our minds have to be reclaimed, minds included. But the group is so powerful that they give you a double header. Not only do they come on Friday, they come on Saturday at 1:30, and Brother True and the Know Thyself Study Group out of Asbury Park, they give you a double header, Friday and Saturday. And Brother Trust is also the mediator of that group, and they do the destruction of black civilization. And when you think you know something about reading and studying and trusting, your whole new spin on it. So we want to thank African Echoes and the Know Thyself Study Group for this 1-2 punch on Friday and Saturday. They're not hiding any information. The Semotap organization, Dr. James McIntosh, Sister Betty Dobson, and Sister Richard Dean Theodore. They do not, WBAI in that Power Pack program called Minefield is not coming on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. The time has been changed to Tuesday, 10 o'clock in the morning, and Dr. McIntosh has an excellent program with the Minefield that needs a lot of support. They're talking about that disgusting Sigma sitcom put on by Netflix with the disgraceful depiction of the good times. So we steady asking for reparations and this and that, and we can't even stop Hollywood from disrespecting us with these disgusting movie pictures and all the stuff they put out, and you expect them to give you some respect, and you can't stop them from disrespecting us on TV. That's one of the worst cartoon things they could put out. So we want to thank the Semotap organization for going up and having marches in front of Netflix. That's why I canceled my Netflix. Forget them. Thank you, Semotap. And they had an excellent program where the guy was talking about they want to make you think that everything in Haiti is going against each other and they fighting amongst each other. Nah. The people in Haiti are getting their act together and they trying to run these barbarians out, like Clinton, Obama, and Bush, and all that natural resource they got under the ground in Haiti. So don't fall for the hype. He had an excellent brother there from Haiti, and he was talking about how they want to make you think that they fighting against each other, but it's not happening. Thank you, Semotap. All the lectures on the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. African Health and Africans program, you can watch on YouTube. You watch the lecture, you get the educational information, you go back, no matter what the speaker says, you have the right to do your own research, whether he's right or wrong. All the lectures, you could go back and do your own research. That's what it's about, education and bringing information to the public. Because with what's going on now, you better know what's going on, because the nails are getting ready to be put in the coffin. Our replacements are here. You better wake up and understand. So those are just some community information that's going on that you could go into and get your information. So now, we couldn't do it last week. Dr. Lewis has been a great impact on the Mackey's group from the beginning. He has a docu-series. Everything going on from the Sahel region, economics, the natural resources in Africa, who controls the military, the dollar, medical advice. Dr. Lewis, you could go into all his lectures on the BK Mackey on YouTube, and he's a power pack individual, has always been a friend for the group, and we want to bring him back for part 7 on the Sahel region. Go in and do your research, because it's going to be a long time to put this thing together, but it's coming down. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I want you to give a great big hand to our keynote speaker and good friend of the Mackeys and African Health and African Lecture Dr. Arthur Lewis. Thanks, Doc. Also give my wife a great big hand. Come on, coming to the rescue.
Okay, greetings, African community. I would like to again extend my appreciation for being given the opportunity to bring you certain types of information so that we can communicate and we can educate each other. The format in which I present are handouts, written handouts. Why? So that you will have something to refer back to in the event that you want to do more research. And it's a beginning in terms of certain types of research. There's so much information out, and Mackey's to the 3 educational series. Purpose is to get information out to the community. So any and everyone who can contribute, regardless of what it is, we need to contribute. So, again, I have to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. There are handouts here, and the handouts today comprise 5 pages. Of these 5 pages, we're going to, as we normally do, go through the pages, and I'm going to read the information that is on the pages so that those who do not get the handout, they will be able to hear what we're saying. For those who are presently here, there are some handouts that you can get in the back. I recommend that you go and get the handout so that you can begin to follow what we are talking about. What we're going to call this particular talk is the continuation of bringing information about the Sahel countries in Africa. The Sahel countries in Africa are a group of African countries that are situated on the African continent. And these countries that are in the quote-unquote the Sahel are countries which are making some fundamental changes to help the population. Again, let's look at Africa. And I am Africa. This is north. My feet is what they call south. And to my right, I'll call this west. We'll call this east. So if I'm Africa, because we don't have the map to illustrate, you're looking at the map as they present it. You have north and south. The north portion has countries like Egypt and Libya. the far south portion of Africa, the map, who I am, where my feet are is the farthest country is South Africa. And then when I raise my hand and you divide me into 3 parts. You have the upper third of Africa, you have the middle third of Africa, and you have the lower third of Africa. Because whenever you talk about any country or any area, geography, you got to have a picture. Okay. Africa, we cut it into 3 parts. From north to south, it's approximately 6,000 miles from the northern part where Egypt is, Libya, all the way to the southern part, which is South Africa. 6,000 miles. It's like going from New York to California, and then you keep on going to another New York. It's very, very from north to south. And from east to west, it's about 5,000 miles. So if we were to look at the map, here's what they show: north, south, west, and east. The way they project the map, the east is going towards the United States. So you have to always look at a map when you're dealing with geography. The Africans, in some of their structures, divide this area we call the continent of Africa, which is the second largest continent, about 12,000 square miles. They divided the African Union, which is the largest political union of the African countries. They divide the country into a northern region, a southern region, a central region, a western region, and an eastern region. That's 5 regions. And if you go on the political structure of the African Union, they add a 6th area. And that 6th area they call the diaspora area. The diaspora area of Africa is the area where African people live on the globe but do not live on the continent. So every African who considers him or herself African, if you're an African, whether you consider yourself one, if you are, if you're not living on the continent, you're living on another part of the globe. That other part of the globe, the African Union called the diaspora. So you are African diasporans. You're in the African diaspora area. Why is it that the African Union made the designation of a diaspora? Because they understand that a large number or certain number of African people live on the globe outside of Africa. And they wanted to include those who are not presently living on the continent to be able to feel that they're part of and to participate in what the African Union is doing. The African Union is the largest union in Africa. They make rules and regulations and other things. So right now you are, according to the African Union, you are part of the diaspora. They have a mechanism where you can register with the African Union as an individual, as a group, and they recognize you. They have programs where you can begin to interact with the African Union because they realize that they need and want the talent that's outside of the African Union. And they understand the history that if Africans along the Nile, ancient, along the West Africa, that you took civilization all throughout the world As even the Japanese and the Koreans asked, the Japanese asked, who brought Buddha for civilization to Japan? They say Buddha. And you look at all the Buddhas, these are African-based people, features and brains. Okay, so that's the diaspora. You have a concept called Pan-Africanism. That concept is including all Africans who consider themselves Africans. So I made a little chart, you don't have this sheet, to say what we mean. To be a Pan-Africanist, that's the term that goes around. I'm making the definition. Not necessarily that I made the definition up, but I'm doing it for concept. An African is anyone who recognizes themselves as African attached to some ancestry. Like Dr. Vince said, white people say, what about the white Africans? There are, as Dr. Vince said, there are no other Africans but black Africans. Regardless of your shade. Oh, you got white, there's no such thing. There's only black Africans with all the variations. Okay. So a brother asked me, what's your definition of Pan-Africanism? I said, I'll do it in terms of educational system that your ancestors put in place. If you have children, married or not married, you must take care of your children and your family. If you have children or a family, you must take care of them. If you take care of your children and your family, I give you a degree of bachelor's in Pan-Africanism. After you take care of your family, when you extend your energy to take care of the Africans in your community, Brooklyn, Manhattan, whatever it is, if you now are engaged in taking care of your family, but you additionally engage in working in your community for the benefit of African people, I give you a master's degree in Pan-Africanism. If you are able to extend yourself where you can now get on the continent and do something to help Africans on the continent, or if you have capabilities or resources that can go into the continent to help African people, whether you can physically, I'll give you a PhD. So the brother said to me, what would you consider? I said, I take care of my family, I work in the community, but I wouldn't give myself a PhD in Pan-Africanism, even though I've been to any number of countries in East Africa and West Africa, because I cannot show where I have directly benefited someone or group on the continent. I've been there. So until I'm able to meet the criteria where I have done something physically, financially, any kind of way to help someone on the continent, then you don't get the PhD. You just can't take a trip. You just can't take tours. You got to do something. For instance, my oldest daughter, who's now 50, 42 or 3, she was in Ghana planting trees so she can get her PhD. So as many times as I've been there, I can't say I qualify yet because I have to do something. They asked me once to stay, to work in and run a hospital, I couldn't. So that's why I'm putting that chore on you. You take care of your family, you get your bachelor's degree. You take care of your work in the community, you get your master's degree. Until you can do something directly. Now, you do activities and things for African people all through the Caribbean, etc., etc. I've been to Vanuatu, I worked and served them, but Vanuatu isn't the continent. So I'm not saying that if you're not doing things or haven't done things for African people outside of the continent, that you're not a good Pan-Africanist. You just have to do something directly to help them. Okay, so that's that definition there. Africa, population. I heard one of your white citizens, they were asking the question about children. And the question was asked, what importance do children have? A lot of people don't have a concept. What importance do children have? If you don't have children, there is no future. So obviously those people, whoever they are thinking that way. They're lost. So that comes to birth. They're tracking all of us, especially, and I'll bring you next week, the university and stuff that track the population around the world, specifically you black folks. African people have, in order for you to replace yourself, you need, according to the statistics, 2.1 human beings. In other words, you a male, you a female. We're only talking about real human interaction. We ain't talking about no homosexuality, nothing. We talking nature. Okay. If you have, a man and a woman has to have 2 children, and they say another child because sometimes the child dies. So in order for a population to replace itself, the people have to have 2.1 children. By that criteria, the Europeans globally are in a negative birth rate. Most of the Asians are a negative birth rate. Some of the Arabs are in plus or minus. And the only population that's really positive, that's adding people, are African people. 1.5 billion on the continent. And it's projected that by 2050, 1 out of 3 human beings on earth will be you. So you're here. You will be here as long as you have children. So you have to ask yourself the question, there are reasons why certain Asians and Europeans and others are not having children, but that's not our concern. Now, where, just to tie in the verse, the question is asked, where are the largest number of African people living outside of the continent? The numbers come up, Brazil. 80, 90 million, whatever it is. Then comes African people from U.S. Now, the oldest known people who inhabited what is now India and Pakistan, and you will go and do research, you will find that any place you go in the world, the oldest people are African people. The oldest people in what is now China are African. The oldest people, like Taiwan, we mentioned that one time that the people in Taiwan, the white Chinese, the Han, they run it, but they ran over. They only started coming into that Taiwan, according to the history, like 1700. And even though Taiwan is mainly made of white Han Chinese, they're about 10 or 15% of the people in Taiwan are non-white Chinese. They look at anyone more like you. Even Taiwan today recognized 15 distinct indigenous groups who've been living on the island for 1,000 years. They look like every one of you. And you go to Vanuatu, you will see you. China's the same way. So India, they have what they call an Adivasi. The Adivasi in that Hindi language means the people of the beginning. So the Indian government, in their statistics, says there's at least 10% of the country of quote-unquote India and probably Pakistan and everything, are of the Arabasi, people of the beginning, straight Africans. Now, we're all straight Africans, but the one that's jet black, you know, we kind of get mixed up a little bit along the road, but you're still an African. So if you use that definition, that 10% of India, which is 140 million documented Adivasi. So the largest number of African people on the globe outside is in India. They call the Adivasi, people of the beginning. So we can't forget about them. Okay. Now, we're going to go into the loose page. There are 5 pages. We're going to do the loose page. And the rest of the 4 we can do within 20-25 minutes. So let's take this loose paper that I didn't photocopy. And I want to give you an idea of what you're up against. The Sahel nation. So the Sahel nations are those nations that run from west to east on this corridor. So if you were to slice Africa up into 5 sections, the second section from the top is the Sahel nation. That's Mauritania, Senegal, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Chad, Sudan, and Eritrea. Those countries are we call the Sahel. And we indicated that they were in a state of a type of Pan-Africanism. And we'll go into that. These states here, in those states that I just mentioned, Senegal, Mauritania, Mali, Niger, Chad, Burkina Faso, less of Sudan and Eritrea. They were all colonized by the French. Africa was cut up under the Berlin and Brussels Conference. When they cut it up, it was primarily English, French, Portuguese, Spanish. You can make the list. The Russians sat in on the Berlin Conference, but they didn't take any colonies. They didn't take any of us as slaves. The United States sat in the Berlin Conference, and they never show up as taking colonies, but they took a piece of the Congo River, and they took Liberia. So the United States did get a piece of it. So when you start seeing we talk about the Sahel in other countries, and they want to know why the Sahel nations want to get rid of the French and the American, and why they now want to be able to deal with any number of other countries. And then they'll come to you and say, we don't understand. Well, we know what happened to us here. Same thing happened there. Somebody comes into your area, rapes your women, take your children away, kill them, brainwash them, steal everything they can put their hands on. And now, under certain circumstances that are occurring globally, the African countries find themselves, especially Sahel, in a circumstance that allows them to be able to get rid of the French, to get rid of the Europeans, and to get rid of the United States. Now, who are the people of the United States of America when it comes to global? The United States is the innocent one. We never had colonies. But after World War II, in order for the English to pay back their American cousins, the English paid the United States gold for payment of help in World War I. They ran out of stolen gold. So the white people at the Bretton Woods from the United States said to their white cousins, you don't have any more gold to give me. Lend-lease, where the United States assisted Russia, Russia paid the United States back in minerals, gold, diamonds, so they paid that. So you white people in the United States said to their white cousins, this is how you pay me back. What way? They said is colonial preference. What are you talking about? Colonial preference. When the Europeans had cut up Africa, each European group would steal from their colonies and wouldn't let any of the other Europeans get in to get a piece of it. It's called colonial preference. So, the English, UK had to give, what can I give you? Give me a piece of what you're stealing out of Ghana. See, give me a piece of what you're stealing out of South Africa. Give me a piece of what you're stealing out of Kenya. Ghana. That's how the United States got in to Africa. And then when you ask after World War II, where does a copper, iron, rubber, stone, where did that come from for the United States to rebuild Europe? For the United States to rebuild Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, all of the raw materials that the United States stole out of Africa in English. That's how they rebuilt it. But you're supposed to forget that. And you're supposed to forget that the people, white people of the United States participated in the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, so they want you to have amnesia when it comes to that. Okay, so let's look at this loose page and let's see what your French people feel about you, or feel about what's happening. So what is happening in Sahel, because circumstances have changed, right now, if you're an African country, you can go to get help against the United States and France and the Europeans. You go to Russia and China and any other number of countries, they will help you. That's what's pushing it. So I'm going to read you what a French economic minister said last year and what school exists in France. You have to remember, when the French came in, we concentrating on the French now. When the French came in, they went through the colonies, killing, raping, murdering. They took your gold, your food, and everything they can put their hands on. So let's say 1885 up until 1960. They're stealing. Now these countries in the Sahel, because of the way the global has changed, have an opportunity to get rid of them. And we'll go through that if we have the time. The uranium coming out of Nigeria, that President Bassoum of Nigeria was giving it away to its French for 80 cents a kilo, when it was selling on the international market for $200 a kilo. That uranium from Nigeria, open pit, one of the highest qualities, provided the uranium to keep Europe, 1/3 of all Europe, industry, homes, come from Nigeria. So they're stealing. Now, those Sahel nations, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, have replaced the French. You can no longer take any more uranium. You no longer can take any more gold. The U.S. bases, you have to go. And listen to the remarks that the French has, because most of those three countries, the French were kicked out. So you understand what you're up against. The French in 2024, of the former French former economic minister, you have the sheet. It's the imbecility he's complaining about we lost all our colonies. Where we gonna get the gold from? Where we get the uranium from? Where we gonna get the food? How we going to exist? He's saying about Macron, the former French minister, Thierry Breton, quote, he's complaining about the loss of these colonies and blaming on Macron, the president. Not blaming on the fact that the Africans are stronger, the Russians, everybody's is now helping. It was inevitable that you can't steal indefinitely, but he wants to blame the president of France for it. So he says, it's the imbecility of Emmanuel Macron, French president, that opened the eyes of Africa. So he won't even give you credit that you get sick and tired of being raped and stolen from. But he's upset. He's blaming Macron. That opened the eyes of Africans. One thing is sure. If France loses its colonies, which it has and is going to lose them all, our children and grandchildren will go to Africa to search for their livelihood. He's telling you what the reality is. Don't let anybody tell you nothing is going to change. It's rapidly changing.
Yes, sir.
Immigration will change directly. Okay? Macron needs to go. If not, France will suffer. Europe needs to unite to fight this new African vision. They have to keep the lying. They have to keep whatever it is, because Africa, see this country called, the continent called Africa? Africa supplies to Europe. Africa supplies to China and has been supplying and still supplying these 8 items, of which if you cut them off, both Europe and China will collapse. Let's see what it is that they have been stealing from us or exporting from us. Gas, oil, wood, and coal. Gas, oil, wood, and coal. The other 4 is food. Africa has 65% of the arable land. Food, fertilizer, minerals, and uranium. Without that, there is no USA. If Africa shut it down, Europe will go. China will go. China wouldn't be able to make a damn thing. It's nothing against China. But it's not this thing about, well, China this. Let's go back to the Civil War of China. See, that Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, all of them, Joshua McCall, I'm telling you, you gotta get this history and put it together and push. If you look at the Civil War in China, it ended in 1945. The communists fighting the nationalists, the communists backed by Russia, the nationalists backed by the United States. The Chinese communists won. After Japan was defeated, the Chinese communists won. And the nationalists, which was capitalists for the US, they went to Taiwan. If you and I could go to China at that point, in 1945, you will see famine. Now you see China rich, powerful, and making things. That's now. But if we could go to 1945, who held China from 45, 55 to 60, they were held by Russia. So when you look at Africa, Africa at this point needs this country to help them develop this. We gave the world all this knowledge, but it was degraded. You need, they always show you pictures. Africa need this, and they need this, and they need this. But if you could see China, big China, from 45 to about 1970, you would think it was any third world country, whatever that means. You would think you would go back to the United States around the Civil War, when you moved around with oxen. What do you think? The United States just got the industrial base in 1930s, 40s, and 50s. So don't let people tell you, oh, it's always this way. China was poverty-stricken on that standard. Nothing against 1945, 50, 67. It was only when the white people of the United States and Europe, to make money, decide to take that industrial base and start shifting it over to China for profit. When was that? 1970s, 1980s, 1990s. That's how China got to be industrialized. Because the white people took the technology. That technology that they took to China, they took from us to Africa. They took us Africans, skilled and unskilled. They took our weaving, our machine, how to smelt metal and everything. The Industrial Revolution was material and metal. So these white people who got the technology that they got in 1940s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, that they transferred to China, they took it, they transferred it from Africa. So people tell you, oh, the Africans aren't going to be able to do this, the Africans aren't going to be this. And nothing is static, it's dynamic. So that's when United China started getting the industrial. Not that China was like Africans, they know how to make it. So China began to industrialize, so-called modern industrialization, only when the United States and Western Europe began to transfer the technology from the technology from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. So they just make believe it's just something miracle. So what these French people are telling you, they're going into abject poverty. If we cannot reverse it, you're not going to be able to reverse it. When we get a chance, we'll compare what the Sahel nations, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Nigeria have done. You have 3 countries in Africa that are still locked down to the IMF, World Bank, and the United States. That's Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa. None of them have returned the land or wealth back to the people like they should. Ghana, South Africa, and Kenya. Kenya has $39 billion of debt to the IMF and World Bank. Ruto is a multi-billionaire. In Kenya, or for the mass of the people, they're living just like the people in China, Haiti. That's why they're in the street. So there's a shift. Are you going to stay with the United States, Europe, and the World Bank, where they come into your country, take all your wealth to build themselves up, leave you with nothing, and then say, you want to roll? Go to the bank and take a loan out. So Africa, if they decide, if we were to zip up to 2050, Africa will be the most, right now the greatest industrial area is in Asia. China. Korea, Taiwan, China, Japan, and even little India. 2050, if Africa wants to, Africa will be the industrial center of the world. So without these 8 things, if you cut off the food, starvation, Europe, starvation, because it is Africa and Russia that feeds China. And nothing against China. They just happen to have a big area, the size of the United States, And only 95% of all the white Chinese live on the east. There's a mountain chain. Most of this is desert. Africa has always been the center. Here, always been the center. So don't let anybody tell you, you have people. The Europeans are 4% of the world population and they're negative. And one of the commentators warned the United States that what you see in Israel, the Nazi people who run Israel, who want to, designers who want to exterminate the Palestinians whose land you stole. One of the white scholars made a comparison. He said, the U.S. better watch out because you're under the same circumstances. You stole the land, you're running a racist Nazi regime. It's split. And if you don't watch out what you're seeing in Israel, you're going to have in the United States. The indigenous people say it's going to take them 200 to 300 years, and they're taking the place back. So I don't know if any of us plan to live 200 years to see it, but you will see it. My nephew told me, one of my brothers who was deceased, just had a discussion to tell Dr. Lewis, they call me Butch, everything is going to be all right. You know you visit your ancestors all the time. What you worried about? Make sure you take care of yourself and your family, your community, and take care of the continent. Because your enemies don't want you to. Because the French are saying, you woke these people up. So he doesn't know the history. How long can you suppress? That's why all of your scholars and everybody who's been hammering, they have to keep you down, divide and conquer. Now, there is in this page here, the lower part, then we're going to finish this out. The French have a school. They call it the French School of Economic Warfare. You know, like a cat. No, I won't say that. It's like an ant. Not the farmer ant, the ant that builds these massive cities. They took an ant city in Africa and they poured cement. And they kept pouring cement for 3 weeks to show you what carpenter ants do, or whatever ants. A magnificent. Irrigate the land, then you have your army ants. Just come along and destroy. European army ants. That's the history. With Professor McIntyre, they came on the scene as marauders. And this is what the French got for you. The French School of Economic Warfare is a French academy curriculum dedicated to competitive intelligence, free trade, and capitalism. A belligerent state with the goal of weakening the economy of other states. That's what they're studying. How do you get in? How do you kill people? How do you break them down? So if any one of you are going to give up your Africanness and stay American, then, you have that choice. But your enemy, they're all your enemy. We're going to go to the last 4 pages. We're going to read it through so we can have the question and answer. What you have to we have to understand is, I will phrase it as Chris Hedges phrased it, so that you don't call me a racist.
Just tell the truth.
Because Chris Hedges, you know who he is. He's been around with Europe when the United States was bombing, and he's been around when they were bombing in Gaza Strip and Syria and everything. He saw firsthand what your white fellow European is. And in Vanuatu, we were told that the prime minister and all of the people, they were hunted down. The children, they was hunted down. Just like they did to the indigenous people. They said in Manu, when I was there, it was 250,000 people on the islands. They said before the Europeans came, there were so many people on the islands that when the birds fly across, they just yelled and it came down. So they've been doing some killing by the millions in Africa. It had to be tens of millions. Killed down the indigenous people, tens of millions, no, 500,000. And we always go back to when the English scholars in England are arguing with their Indian scholars in what is now India, and they're arguing over how many millions of people the English killed when they were in India and Pakistan. They couldn't come up 25 to at least 75 million. They're killing people. Okay. So let's go to the first of 4 pages. Page 1 is Smedley Butler. I gotta bring him in. It takes us 2 minutes to read. Because it's an excellent example. He's telling you how the United States run it at that time, and it's still run.
Still do it the same way.
So that's why we use it, and then we're going to do the study on the Congress. Takes about 5 minutes, and then we'll read these pages down. So we have about 15 or 20 minutes to get the information out before we have question and answer. Smedley Butler on intervention. And as you read it, for those who don't, he's educated. He was furious because after World War I and II, the veterans were mistreated. And he tells in his book later on, who's making all this money? What do you get out of it? So we're going to read it. Smedley Butler on intervention. Excerpts from the speech delivered in 1933 by Major General Smedley Butler. He's telling you about war. He's giving you a snapshot picture of the reality of war, so that you don't have to go and spend a lot of money to get a degree in history on lies. But that's what it is.
That's all it is.
He says war is just a racket. A racket is best described, I believe, as something that is not what it seems to the majority of the people. Only a small inside group knows what it's about. It is conducted for the benefit of the very few at the expense of the masses. The next read we're going to do explains exactly how the U.S. government works. I believe in adequate defense at the coastline and nothing else. If a nation comes over here to fight, then we will fight. The trouble with America, white Anglo-Saxon people run America. The people who made the Constitutional Convention and made the U.S. Constitution were white slaveholders.
Yes, sir.
And they tell you, for our prosperity, not yours. And the Constitution of the United States is a compilation of the slave code. The 13 colonies each had a slave code, which it was the law on how you're going to run your colony.
Still the law.
And each of the 13 colonies had a slave code.
Right.
You can't do this, you can't get off the plantation, blah, 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 blah. They took the best of each of them and put a U.S. Constitution is a slave document. Pure and simple.
Yes, sir.
So the same way, if we were to go to the colony of the United States and we were to count people at a certain age, certain stage, let's say this colony had 5,000 people. Depending upon it, you counted everybody. Probably 2,000 or 3,000 or more of them would be Africans who were enslaved doing all the work. Then you would have a certain white percentage of the population, all white people, male and female, called indentured servants, slaves. Irish primarily. The first group of people the English brought here as slaves were Irish. They couldn't do the work. The indigenous people wasn't having it. So they had to come and get us. But then when the revolts got too great, they went into India and Pakistan and got the dark-skinned people, India and Pakistani. That's why you have Indians and Pakistanis in Fiji, in South Pacific, and you have them in the Caribbean. That's where they come from. Because you're doing too many revolts. So if we could go to the colony, 5,000, you would probably find 3,000 Africans working, doing the work, building the wharfs, the everything. We just conjecture. You might find another 2,000 white people, human beings. And most of those white people would be Irish slaves. Then you would have that small group of people who ran the slave. Just like here, you know, you got 350 million people, you might have 1,000 or 1,500 billionaires and stuff. Those billionaires are the slave owners. So of the 5,000, only 300 or 400 slave owners in that state. They're the only one who could vote. They're the only one who could make the laws. The Irish slaves couldn't make it. The Africans who were enslaved didn't make it. And that's the colonial structure. And you have a similar structure now when it comes down to the people who's running it. And in the second page, it tells you who's running the country. They verify this. I believe that the adequate defense is at the coastline and nothing else. It is a nation. If a nation comes over to fight, then we'll fight. The trouble with America is that the dollar only earns 6% over here, then gets restless and goes overseas to get 100%. Then the flag follows the dollar and the soldiers follow the flag. After we read the second page, the last 2 pages will describe what your government did to the rest of the world. Exactly what Smedley Butler said. You want to know how your government did to the rest of the world and what they did with the money? The last 2 pages. So Smedley Butler is pulling your coat from 1870 into 1900. He's telling you how this country was run in that period. Then the third, the second, the last 2 will tell you what the United States has been doing to the rest of the world while nobody wants to be bothered with it. In that if they had the opportunity, they would isolate the United States and wouldn't let you out of here. Right. And that's why after World War II, they armed themselves to the teeth. I wouldn't go to war again as I have done to protect some lousy investment banker. Black guy. Okay? Then we drop to 1, 2, 3, 4. There isn't a trick in the racketeering bag that the military gang is blind to. It has the fingermen to point out enemies. It has the muscle men to destroy enemies. The brain men to plan war preparation, and the big boss super nationalist capitalist. And what he's saying, you're going to see in the last 2 pages. Documented how the country goes.
See every day.
And then this last big chapter, he gives his history to verify who he is and what he did so that you can believe him. It may seem odd for me, a military man, to adopt such a comparison. Truthfulness compels me to do so. I spent 33 years and 4 months in the active military service as a member of the country's most agile military force, the Marine Corps. I served in all commissioned ranks from second lieutenant to major general, and during the period I spent my time taking high-class muscle man for the big business, for Wall Street, the bankers. In short, I racketeer for capitalism. So if you don't understand that. Okay, let's begin. We're going to skip the next and we're going to go to the last big section. I help, now he's telling you specifically, United States, who they was working over, was local, because they didn't have the capacity to go over and kill Africans yet with their military, or kill people in the so-called Middle East. So they're going to do the job on the people who they can get close to. I helped make Mexico, especially Tampico, safe for American interests in 1914. Vast amount of water. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the National City Bank boys to collect revenue in. I helped in the raping of half a dozen Central American republics for the benefit of Wall Street. The record of racketeering is long. I helped make Nicaragua for the International Banking House of Brown Brothers in 1909 to 12. Where have I heard the name of this before? I brought light to the Dominican Republic for American sugar interests in 1916. In China, I helped to see see that Standard Oil was okay. That's when, at that time, the United States was just beginning to start trying to rape China, Asia, because remember they were in the Opium War. Opium War 1 and 2, Opium War 1 with U.S. and Britain, and the Opium War 2 was U.S., Britain, and France. Okay. So Smendy what is telling you. So if you can't say he wasn't told. Now the second page is from the study. We went through this before, but you got to keep it going so that you understand what you're writing. Study. U.S. Congress literally doesn't care what you think. And people say, well, what are you going to read here? 4 or 5 minutes, we're going to tell you, they're telling you from their study how the U.S. government works. Where your tax dollars are going, who's giving your tax dollars away, and why you don't have anything. And then he says, okay, here's what it is. Basically, it is, have you ever felt like the government doesn't really care what you think? Professor Martin Gillen, Princeton University, Benjamin Page, Northwestern University, looked at more than 20 years worth of data to answer a simple question. Does the government represent the people? Then you will see the different levels of government, how this country works. The study took data from nearly 22,000 public opinion surveys and compared it to the policies that let me not read it. Let me synopsis it. You can read. What they're saying here, in a nutshell, because there are more important things when you read it, is that 90 to 95%, the survey here, of every law passed in the United States, local, city, state, and federal, the laws reflected what the big donors paid for. 95%, federal, state, and city. And in here, you can read in more detail that these big corporations give $4, $5, $6 billion a year in bribes. The way Congress gets it at this, the way the Congress people get it, is the corporation now, they take those congressmen and women and the president, and they give you stock and bonds.
That's why promotion them got all that money.
That's right, stock and bonds. So you can't say, well, because they passed the law in the U.S. Congress that Congress people have a right to invest in the corporations. So they hand out $5 billion and scatter it among the congressmen, among the senators, among the president, a little bit dribble down to the state legislator and the city people. And they say they give out $5 billion. And those Congress people give what they say. I'm looking for the number.
Take your time.
4.4 trillion.
What is it?
4.4 trillion back.
In other words, they give the Congress and bribe them with $5 billion, and how much do they give of your tax dollars?
4.4 trillion.
How can you get that?
Okay, so you understand that. Okay, let's go back, let's go to the last 2 pages so we can then have discussion and question and answers. Okay, I included it. Last 2 pages, probably 10 more minutes. This is from the Washington Post. Now, okay. 2023. You can go look it up further. It's titled Post 9/11 Wars. You know when the government blew up the buildings? When you hear all the bombs going off, and then they put whatever they did to disintegrate the building, and then use the excuse and say that the Arabs did it. Right, and now we have to invade Afghanistan. Why we going to invade Afghanistan?
Heroin.
What do you call it? A narcotic. What's the name of the narcotic? Poppy. Heroin. Plus they got a lot of other minerals there. But it's the poppy, right? Plus they can spy on all of Russia, China, and everybody else. Plus how much of the lithium, gold and stuff did they take out of there in 20 years? Because when they went and knocked off Gaddafi and killed him, what did they do? They stole his gold, they stole his silver, they knocked out the pipeline, and they stole the oil. So you know there's massive theft here. At the end, and in the next session that you allow me to come back, you will it's really something. Okay. Let's read. What does the Washington Post say? This is it's post 9/11 wars. Those wars after have contributed to some 4 to 5 million deaths. So the country's saying those countries that the United States invaded, they kill at least 5 million people that they could track. And who were the presidents?
Bush.
Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden. They wreak havoc. And part of you will see how much they spend. See, when the United States outsource everything, in order for the ruling class to still make money, they say, okay, we're going to lock everybody down in credit. And because we're making all these wars to steal from everybody, we're going to use 1/3 of your tax dollars. We're going to use that just to make war, make machines and bullets and stuff. But we're going to spend the equivalent on our war equipment that the next 9 countries spend. So let's say $100 billion United States spends on the military a year. Russia, China, India, and the next 6 countries spend $100 billion. So the United States is spending $100 billion, and 9 other countries are spending $100 billion. Russia now has the strongest land army. Nobody beats Russia. China has the largest navy. The United States has the largest air force. Half the planes don't work. And how you know that is because we went over this a couple of years ago when the Saudis were fighting the Yemenis, and the Yemenis were shooting rockets and destroying the Saudi Arabian oil field. The rockets didn't work. The equipment doesn't work.
They got it from America.
So they're taking $1 trillion of your dollars
trillion.
1/3 of your tax, $3 trillion, 1/3 goes to the military. And that 1/3 is split up between the Congress people, the Pentagon, and the military industrial complex. The Congress people give the $1 trillion. They give it to the Pentagon. Then the Pentagon gives it, take their cut, and then they give the balance of it to the military industrial complex. And then the military industrial complex give the Congress people their cut of $5 billion in stock. And you got nothing. Even your mayor, what your mayor is doing is what the United States do. Your mayor, forgot his name, went on TV and said, he went on TV and says, we're using your tax dollars to house the immigrants in these hotels, right? And he said it was $2 billion. And because he's using it for the refugees or whatever you call it, that he's neglecting the board, neglecting the school system, the infrastructure, and the police. I don't believe the police because the police are guaranteed, but let's go along with it. But you're going to give the police their money, or you ain't going to have, you know about what happened if the complete, if you don't, it's like the First Lady of Sierra Leone said, the only way we're going to get our country stable is we got to have peace. That means you're going to have to get rid of the corrupt African leaders and get rid of all the corrupt European who's stealing from us. Peace, and you got to have electricity. The electricity is to do infrastructure, right? So your mayor is telling you that he's taking your tax dollars, I don't know who gave him the authority, and we're going to give them to house these people, as Brother Ray so aptly said, our replacement, African replacement that looted, that he's neglecting school, he's neglecting the police, and he's neglecting infrastructure. That's what he said. Pardon me? No, I know he's not. He can, because it's guaranteed, but that's what he said. I only tell you what he said, unless I heard it wrong. I know the police are guaranteed. If you don't have security, the ball game is over. The police run the city. Come on. You got pistol. Them things that kill you. Now, he also told you that they have an agreement with 100 hotels to house these people to the tune of $2 to $3 billion.
57th Street and 11th Avenue.
Giving $2 to $3 billion to 100 hotels, all owned by private people, whoever they are. Why are the hotels empty? Because you locked down the tourism. You got inflation in the Los Gentes no tienen chavo. The people don't have money to spend. So you destroy the tourism. Inflation, we don't have the money. And then because you shut down, you let everybody work from home, the government is now saying that the vacancy rate of all of these commercial throughout the country is at least 40 or 50%. And so I assume that these 100 companies are now welfare state off of your tax dollar because they made it here. So that's how it works. They come people here as corrupt, if not more corrupt than any African leader or whatever you want to call. Oh yes. So that's how it works. Okay.
Especially with him having 160 billion to spend.
So let's read the last 2 pages. Read it out, and then we can talk. Because if we talk in between, we're never going to finish it. U.S. This is what they said. You can get the article, read it in full. I read it and took out the important parts. It says the U.S. led invasion of Afghanistan, Iraq, 9/11 violence, what was the result? Hunger, devastation of public services, and the spread of disease. When you bomb out a country, when they do it to Syria, Libya, you see what they did? They are totally destroying the damn country.
Don't forget the jab.
The Brown University research, UN data, expert analysis, calculate excessive death, the war on terror, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Syria, Somalia, Yemen. They total it, they can account for at least 5 million people killed directly from your war machine. They attack countries who can't defend itself. But what Russia and China and other countries are doing now, they made a statement that, Russia and China made a statement that they will come to the assistance of any country that is attacked by the West. Right. And that attack will cause disruption of international law. Okay, give you an example. The Sahel nations, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, have quit what they call an ECOWAS. ECOWAS is the West African grouping. ECOWAS is financed by the United States and France. So soon as the coup came in Nigeria, because Nigeria got all the uranium, the ECOWAS nations, under the guidance of the United States and France, said, attack Nigeria and overthrow it. The Sahel nations, those 3 countries, joined in a joint military pact. Attack on one is attack on the other. Here's your Pan-Africanism that the French guy was saying, they woke up. Yes, sir. If we work together, we can't do anything to them. So they grouped together. If you attack Nigeria, you're going to have to fight Burkina Faso and Mali. Algeria is this large country here, which borders the Sahel nation. They made a declaration. The French asked, would you let me overfly your country to attack Nigeria?
No, sir.
And Algeria says, we made a mistake. We didn't do anything when the United States was attacking Libya. And because of that attack, they disrupted the whole area. And it was when they knocked off Gaddafi in 2011, those jihadists, those terrorists who attacked these Sahel nations, they appeared in 2012. The United States and France and Europe put them there. Just like when Russia was fighting in Afghanistan, the United States got the jihadists, created them, funded them, fought the Russians in there. When the United States made the attempt to overthrow Syria, they created the jihadists, they equipped them. And these terrorists operate from Senegal all the way across to Sudan. How do you operate over a 4,000-mile area in the desert where you get the food from? Right. The fuel and everything. Exactly. So anybody who understands what is going on knows that they were put there to disrupt you, just like they do to the black community here. Because these people know they don't belong on the land and what they're doing, so they're going to do everything to break you. So these jihadists are here. When the coup came in Nigeria, who was in these Sahel nations? The U.S. was there with the drone-based fire. The French were there with the French troops helping the jihadists. The British was there running helicopter service. The European Union had troops. They all had troops occupying. You kicked them all out. You went to Russia, Iran, Turkey, and everything, and now you're building up your military and you're retaking the land. So if they want to now, if ECOWAS or the United States wants to now attack Nigeria, they're going to have to fight Mali and Burkina Faso. Algeria says they will not allow any country to attack Nigeria because they don't want the area disrupted. In Africa, so they say, the largest army is Egypt. The second largest is South Africa. The third is Algeria and Nigeria. So Algeria says an attack on Nigeria, they're coming in to defend. So if the United States or France, they're not coming in, they're trying to get the African countries to attack Nigeria. But if you now have 3 countries who are joined together, and these countries may have as much as 20, 30,000 men under arms. And now Algeria, which has a more powerful military than this, they're going to come in to defend them. Venezuela and Cuba already said they will come in to defend. The Russians already have troops, they will come in to defend. In Libya, the eastern half of Libya is controlled by Haftar. He's a general who was with Gaddafi. Haftar, he just came from Algeria, from Libya, and he's in Nigeria. He's backed by Russia. So if they're thinking to attack Nigeria, they're going to fight Mali, Burkina Faso, Cuba, Venezuela, Russia, Algeria, Egypt. It ain't gonna work. Do you want Russia to bomb out this corrupt nation you call, what is this called here? Nigeria? Give me a break here. That's what's going to happen. United States is not going to go in. And so what is now happening is, you know how the United States went through all these countries? They just bombing and killing and bombing and killing because there was nobody to stop them. Now you have a mechanism in the BRICS. Anybody who is going to be attacked, pick up the phone. Pick up the phone. These countries are rich in gold and everything. Africa, these countries are now beginning to work with other countries. So what they did to Libya, they destroyed Libya. They went and destroyed Syria. They destroyed Afghanistan. They were running around the world destroying people, killing 4 to 5 million people. It ain't happening anymore. Because even in the Red Sea, the Houthis are bombing Israel.
Yeah.
And the United States attacked Russia and said, I want to give the Houthis whatever they need. So in other words, the United States, the BRICS are coming with a parliament. The BRICS are going to form a parliament. And that parliament, which will encompass most of the world, they're going to ignore the UN. Ain't nobody going to the UN anymore because they know United States, France, and England, they're going to bull crap. So you now have the actual mechanism where the non-white countries, Russia, Venezuela, Cuba, Algeria, you now have a military coalition that if you run into trouble, pick up the phone. So you're not going to get what we're going to hear about how they destroyed Libya, how they destroyed Afghanistan, how they destroyed these countries, Syria. The conflict, any more conflict, the United States is going to run into the Russian and the Chinese military, the Venezuelan military, the Libyan. So they're already preparing the area to fight. So if what's his name? I keep forgetting the name of this country, Nigeria. They're going to be bombed out. The people are not going for this anymore. So they They're forming it's in here someplace. So that kind of indiscriminate destruction is ending. So we're not tolerating what the United States and them been doing. So let's read it quickly. The Brown University says that Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, the deterioration of the economic environment, 3.6 to 3.7 million indirect deaths. So you kill 4 million, then you have indirect death. Then we go up to this area here, the Middle East, Northern Africa, Central Asia, Iraq, and then over here, see right here, first page, how much money of your money did they spend doing this? Who has the number?
8 trillion.
Say it again.
8 trillion.
So they're telling you that this government took 8 trillion, you know it's more than that,
That's what they tell you.
of your tax dollars to kill 6 million people. Exponentially more people, children, impoverishment, food insecurity, environmental contamination, trauma, violence with each other, destruction, the excess. So what they're doing is, not only do they go to the next and final page, not only do they go in and just kill the people directly, by the time war, let's look at the last page over here. War, indirect deaths, contaminated water, famine, medical care goes down, infrastructure, malnutrition, pregnancy problems, the whole thing. What they're doing is they're going in and destroying your damn country so you won't become viable. But that's over. It's over. The Russia and China is telling you it's not happening anymore. Even in Gaza, it's getting to the point. The Houthis are in it. Iran is on standby. Turkey's on standby.
Yeah.
So the world is changing. So this country, when you read it, the report, killed almost 20 million people. From Trump, who's this guy? From Obama, Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump. 3 to 4 million direct deaths and another 20 million destruction. So, the BRICS nation, Russia and China says no more. Let's read the last two, then we finish. This is the last clip here. Okay, this last clip right up here. No, let's take this, let's take these three here. It says here, U.S. war. What are the 4 things that run the United States? The military, industrial, congressional complex. 1/3 of your money goes to the Congress, military industrial complex. 1/3, $1 trillion goes, is cut up between the Pentagon, the Congress, and military industrial complex. The other 3 that run the country is the intelligence. That's the CIA, FBI. The other thing that run the country is the educational system. And the last thing is the media. You're in media. You're trying to get information. What are the governing ways of the United States? The United States is a constitutional democracy. You have a constitution, and it's a democracy. Democracy, it's not really a constitutional democracy. Because democracy means you vote directly. You don't vote directly. You have representatives. So they call it a constitutional democracy when you go to vote. It's also a dictatorship. When the president writes an executive order, that's a law. You have to live by this executive order. It's law. That's a dictatorship. Only been men so far. He tells you what you're going to do. And this is a fascist country Because the definition of fascism is when you fuse the state and private.
Corporation.
And you already, from this study that they did to show you that who's making all the laws, that makes it a fascist country. So when people say you're fascist, you're racist, you're Nazis, okay? Let's take this section here, the last page, the top section. Business Insider, that magazine. The article, Power of the Big Three. BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, they're the largest shareholders in 88% of S&P 500 firms. Okay? This conglomerate, all these companies pool their money in 3 countries, own almost 90% of the stock, for those who you think you want to do the stock market. When they shut us down for COVID from 2019 to 2021, 2023, 50% unemployment, 1/3 of all small business went out, and the federal government printed up $4 trillion and gave it to all of these people.
Yeah.
That's why they're rich. Together, these 3 shareholders of 40% of all U.S. companies. Talk about monopoly. BlackRock to own 30% of all residential homes in the U.S. by 2030. And the last thing is what is developing in the BRICS. The BRICS are developing a bank, trade with your own currency, getting rid of the U.S. dollar, using whatever this wire stuff they use. And they're going to replace they're going to replace the UN. Okay? And a good example of how they're going to replace it, the next time I present, we're going to deal with Bretton Woods and the UN. In the UN, it was put together by white people. United States, France, and UK, and the nationalist Chinese, because they were in power. They put themselves on the Security Council, because that was the main thing that deals with international war. You will see there are 17 divisions of special agencies within the United Nations. And one of the most important ones that impacted us with COVID was the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization came out with, there is a pandemic. The World Health Organization gave all the information on it. The World Health Organization recommended a shutdown. They recommended the vaccine. They ran the show. The World Health Organization is one of 17 divisions. Where does the World Health Organization get its money from? It comes from the United States government, Bill Gates, and the big medical houses of Europe and United States.
The World Health Organization?
The World Health Organization, when you look up the UN, you will see there's 17 divisions, special groupings. And it is the United Nations in those 17 groupings that makes the recommendations for the world. And who came up with this? It was a pandemic. Who came up with, we need to shut down? Who came up with these stuff? It was the World Health Organization.
That's
And who was running the World Health Organization? Bill Gates, United States, and the European Medical, and they put a black face up there.
And the European what, doctor? The European what?
The World Health Organization, which ran the farce of the global pandemic to recommend lockdowns, to recommend vaccines. And the President of the United States, you need to take the vaccines. Who pushed that? The World Health Organization. Who was running it? The white corporations of the United States and Europe and Bill Gates people. So as long as you listen to the world, anything coming out of the UN, all of the 17 agencies are dominated by white business people. And you're asking the world to listen to what we say. So the World Health Organization went to the Africans and say, will you give us permission that whatever we put out, you follow? They say, hell no. You got us once. So this new parliament that BRICS is forming, they said, look, we're 90% of the world. You have two worlds, they say. It's a global, multi-global world. But you have two blocks, as one of the white, elderly CIA persons from the United States said. It is a multi-world. The Africans going to run their part. The Asians going to run their part. Everybody run their part. It is United States and white people who want to continue the colonialism where they ran everything. So the way this white ex-CIA analyst said, you now are developing two worlds. He said you have on this end the lily U.S. and the lily white world. And you have the rest of the world, people of color, who are the vast majority. And he says, you know what the non-white world have in common? They all were victimized by the white world. Okay? So that's what's driving it. So you can call it non-racist or racist, I don't care what you call it. The World Health Organization tells you that they are a private NGO made up of white men from these countries, Western countries. They tell you European countries. European countries, US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. It's a white person's clique. And the people who are members are the ones, white men, who in each of these countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, US, UK, and Western Europe, the people who run these countries, the bankers, the people that spend the money to talk about. That's the World Health Organization. They're the ones who want to hold on to the way the world won, where white people tell everybody what to do through the UN. So the rest of them are saying, no, we don't, let the white people, in other words, when it comes to war, you just saw where the United States just went around the world killing people, destroying countries. Russia, China, and the rest of the world said it's not going to happen again. You're going to go to war on Iran, you're going to fight China, you're going to fight Russia, and you're going to fight Turkey. You want to go to war in Nigeria, you think you're going to bomb it out? Because they're preparing. The Russians and the Libyans are already preparing for war. They're not going to let it happen again. And that's the end message that I feel that we could walk away with. The things that, the way the world is now beginning to run, it's no longer going to run. And I'll end by this. When we look at the UN, when the UN was created, and the Bretton Woods, when they met, when they met at the Bretton Woods, there were 46 people, countries, only 4 of them African. So here it is, a group of men, white men, making the structure of how the world is going to run post-1944 Who's going to control the world economically? IMF and World Bank, right? Who's going to control the world militarily? NATO and the United States. We're going around determining who should be bombed, who should be killed, who should be sanctioned, and what the hell are you going to do about it? They're going to do something about it. We used to run the global banking, no more. And one of the most important steps that you're seeing now is Nigeria. United States, we all have been told, you're going to check Nigeria, you're going to fight Russia, you're going to fight China, you're going to fight Libya, you're going to fight Cuba, Venezuela, plus we're preparing for you. Ain't going to be no sneak attack. We're ready now. By the time you even think about it, you ain't going to even be able to do it to anybody anymore. And that's, for me, what I love about it is the world is now restructuring so you don't have to fear that if you try to stop a European or American from stealing, they're going to kill your leader. I have no comment on what is happening with the elections in the United States. When Obama was running, my wife and I have 5 adult children. I said, who are you going to vote for? I said, me and us 5 children, we're going to vote for Obama because he's black, but he's going to portray you. So I'm going to demonstrate to you how the system works.
Go ahead.
They don't vote anymore. They don't bother like that. They don't waste the leather on the shoe. They understand that. My wife said, she didn't say she wasn't going to vote. She said, I'm voting for McKinney. She's black and she's the only one in there that has the interests of black people. She did. We all know Obama, what Obama was, handpicked.
Right.
That's right.
And I don't make a comment, but it's common knowledge. I'm not a scholar or anything. I didn't write any books on Obama, but you know how he was brought up. You know the white women, the woman, and that one. Look, he wanted to marry this white woman, and they wanted to hook up, which is okay if that's what you want to do. But the people said we need a black president. We want a black president to show the world, because we got all these black countries coming up. But you can't. We're trying to project the image of a stable black family that black people in America stay in. Forget about the millions of young people in prison. And forget about the poverty they keep us in. They think everybody's stupid. So they told Obama, you can't have the white woman. We need a president with a black woman. So they hook up the lady and whatever it is. You had to get rid of Reverend, what's his right? You got to get rid of all that. So you want to go, they put you there. They put Meeks there. The world has changed so much, they ain't even bothered to put Jeffries up there. It's a joke.
Exactly.
So we are Pan-African. Take care of yourself, your family, your community. Help all your African people all over. Whether you like it or not, you are part of Africa. You automatically are in the diaspora. You can go online and you can register yourself as a member of the diaspora personally. You can register your business. You can register your organization, of which we already, when this thing shut down, I'll tell you what we've done.
Where do you register? I'm sorry.
You go online, you just go online, and they tell you how to register as diaspora. You look up the diaspora, the African Union Diaspora. You're already a member. They want you there, they want your knowledge, your skill, they want your participation. Okay? a diaspora. So, so there are things that you can do. But so when people ask me, and I'm finishing here, what recommendation? We already know what we got to do. You're an African, take care of yourself first and your family. Then you, when you got enough, you participate in your community. If you got more resources, you go out around the world helping your African people and try to do something there. What else can you do? Long as you actively doing it, and the fact that the black African people in this country are the only one who still have a positive birth rate. When you add on the Mexicans, they're gonna take it back. The indigenous people will take it back. The poor white people will understand. You got 4% of the world's population. You're not making babies. And now the world, you don't run the world anymore. You don't run the world anymore. You're not going to be able to invade anybody anymore. And the people are getting rid of the US dollar. The country has what they say, $34, $40 trillion worth of debt. You owe that debt, I owe it. How much of that debt, how much of that money y'all got? Did anybody get any of that 40 trillion? You got unemployed, you got laid off. So we in here formally to break for question and answers and ideas and discussions so that you can add to what we want to do. You got your core, you're an African-based people. You work for yourself and your family first, and you put on your community, and then if you got any left over, you go to the islands, you go all over. It's wonderful for anybody. The economic opportunities in Africa are going to be unlimited. But you gotta have some ideas, and you gotta have money. You can't go any place without a talent or money. Look. You have opportunities you can never get here, but you gotta have resources. You can't just show up in Africa and say, I'm here. What you bring with you?
Like they showed up here and said I'm here.
Say what? Say it.
I said like they showed up here and said I'm here.
After they invaded the country, but,
All right. So the first question, give Dr. Lewis a great big hand. All right. The first question is going to be from our Zoom audience. We got Brother Bo Wright, our Detroit connection. Come on, Dennis, you got it, baby. Bo Wright.
Yeah, can you hear me, Dr. Lewis?
Loud and clear.
We all can hear you.
Oh, well, greetings, Dr. Arthur Lewis. I enjoy your lecture, as I always do. My question to you is this. Have people of African descent reached a critical inflection point in history? If so, can you explain how we respond to this inflection point? How we respond to this inflection point will impact us for decades to come. I can reword the question if you want to, but the question is, have people of African descent reached an inflection point in history?
Just define for the listeners what you simplify the inflection part of it. What do you mean by inflection point?
What I mean by inflection point is a critical point in history that is so delicate that however you respond to it will have long-term ramifications, both positive or negative.
The answer to the question, I believe, is yes. And I believe the global inflection point for African people is because what was put in place in 1944 by the United States and France and the Europeans, where they made a decision to dominate the globe, including Africa, using the United Nations politically, using the NATO and US militarily, and using the IMF and World Bank economically, those are the things that tie the globe down, especially Africa down, to put us in a very disadvantageous situation called colonialism. If you compare the status of African countries in 1944 at the Bretton Woods of 46 countries sitting down at that time to restructure the world, only 4 African countries was there of the 46. One was Liberia, which was under the U.S., non-independent.
Colony of the US.
The other one was Egypt, which was under the British. The third African country was South Africa, which was under white British rule. And the only country sitting at that conference to establish the UN and the Bretton Woods was Ethiopia, was the only independent. So if you consider the status of African countries, if you want to include all of those African countries in the Pacific, Vanuatu, Papua New Guinea, Fiji, New Caledonia, New Zealand, they were all under British and French. When you consider those countries that sat at the Bretton Woods and the UN, there were a number of countries in the Caribbean. They were colonies. Haiti was there. They were colonized. Cuba was there. They were colonized. So what I would say, globally, if you take the Bretton Woods and the UN conference, which was set up in 1944, by the white people, United States, England, and France, African people basically were colonized. Asian people basically were colonized. The Caribbean was colonized by whites. And now the inflection point or the change is that almost all of these countries are no longer colonies. And the status of each of these countries, economically, politically, and militarily, is far superior. So as far as I'm concerned, we came from African people, and the world came from colonies in 1944 by whites, primarily United States, England, and France. Now to 2024, 193 countries in the UN, we're no longer colonies. We have militaries. We have economic, political, and military control. And we are progressively that inflection point of change where we're going to build a multipolar world, where we're going to run it. We're not going to have any white slavery or any kind of slavery. That's the inflection point that we're in. And you must capitalize on it.
All right, question from the floor. Good, Ora.
So, which
Good evening, Ray Ray.
country could we get a passport in?
Hello?
All right, Zoom question to be next.
Okay.
Speak up a little louder.
I can't answer about passport. Every country is different. Most
Where
countries.
could be easily with South
Ghana,
Africa?
Liberia.
But they're not BRICS. Ghana and Liberia. I'm talking about a BRICS country. To be a part of that economic struggle.
The best I can do is I have my links here. All my family, my immediate family, all my friends here in the United States. I can't just jump up if I had the money and just say I'm going to Africa and I'm going to set up. The 3 things that bring you back from Africa or bring you back from when you go overseas is money. You took your money there to set up. And then you ran out. You run out because you still need ongoing money. The second thing is the lack of opportunity or ability to generate money while you're there. Okay, I brought 100,000, I set up, but I need money to live. So let me see if I can set up a business in Africa, one of the African countries. And let's say I wasn't successful in setting up a business to sustain me. Then I come back. And the third thing that brings you back is your family. So what I would say is, you can't forget your family here. The hell, this country does not belong to white people.
Exactly.
I'm a U.S. citizen, I'm an African American, I'm an African, and I have citizenship of America. The country belongs to the indigenous people. We all here temporarily. So I don't recognize the government of the United States. I will obey it, but theoretically, I don't recognize. You run it now. You're not going to run it in 300 years. You didn't run it 200 years ago. You're a temporary usurper. That's how I see it. The land is beautiful. I'm going to run away from America. What makes me run is not only the beauty of African countries globally, but the mistreatment here. So I made a decision, only can speak for myself, that I have to make sure that before I start in the journey there, I have to stabilize the family that I leave behind. I can't leave my grandchildren behind knowing they're going to be in what they're going to be mistreated. So the best thing I can answer is stabilize yourself here, family, etc., etc., and then you start going out and take it in steps. As far as passport, so you get a passport. I've been in Vanuatu. I've been with a brother, he had 5 passports. I didn't ask him where he get it from because it was none of my damn business. Because I may not have liked the answer. So don't worry about a passport. So whether you get a passport or not, you got to contribute to the country. Next.
Okay. Who's that, AD?
Yes.
My question,
Say whatever you got to say.
my question is more off topic. My question is based on what you think about Prime Minister Netanyahu, who came to the capital today. Oh, that's the question. Okay. I'm sorry. Right, my question is what do you think about Prime Minister Netanyahu, who came to the capital today and made his clairvoyant speech, I guess it's for maybe more funds. And a large segment of Democrats was absent today, for whatever reason.
Let's look at it globally. The UN, way back there when Britain was there, he gave the land to the Jewish people who populated what is Israel. They come almost exclusively from Europe. The Ashkenazi Jews, etc. European Jews. Part of what they say, I'm not putting part of what they say is they want a Jewish state. They don't want any quote unquote non-Jews. So 700,000 of them come out of Europe and they start setting up the state. Who's supporting the state? The United States and the Europeans. They push 700,000 indigenous people who've been on the land for so many years. They displace them, right? Then you have Dr. Bin, black Jews. What do you do with the black Jews? Most of the world population are not white Jews. So now what do you do about the Ethiopian Jew and the Indian Jew who was Jewish before you? So they have a dilemma now. They want a land for Jews, but they don't want black Jews. They don't want these Jews. And the ones, Dr. Ben would always tell us that when the Ethiopian Jews and others come into Israel, they were mistreated, etc., etc., etc. So I'm not criticizing them for that.
Well, criticism. Go ahead.
Yes, no. You can hit them good on this one. Okay. So
And then
you ran a point when the beginning of with the Jews, they were supported by United States and European, who were the most powerful people in the world, economically, military, and politically. Now the United States and Europe are no longer the most powerful. It is France, Russia is the strongest. Russia and China said they're combining their armies. They're working together. So they let the United States know and the NATO know. You're going to fight Russia and Chinese army together. If you want to put it that way, no longer you trying to knock off one or the other. You're not going to knock off Nigeria. There's no country you're going to invade. We all coming in on you. So they have dominated that. That's part of the inflection. Israel fought the Arabs 2 or 3 times and lost all of the time. Who was flying them planes? Who was shooting? Israel right now is in a war with the internal population of Gaza. Israel's fighting another group of human beings, what they call it, the Hezbollah. There are 2 major groups. Israel's fighting the people in the Gaza Strip that they put in, the Arabs they put into that Gaza Strip. They're fighting the one in another area of Gaza. Then they're fighting a group of people in Yemen they're shooting rockets in, and they're blowing up things. And they can't fight without the United States. They don't make these bombs. They don't make the plane. They don't have the fuel. The Israeli army is totally, what's the word? Dependent on the United States. Because the storehouse of weapons they got from the United States, yes.
Well, I'll just...
Say what you gotta say.
You just said, look, I don't subscribe for a moment, even though I know this wasn't part of your lecture, but I don't subscribe for a moment that the defense forces of Israel is at war with whatever Palestinian group you want to call it. That's like saying NYP is at war with the Bloods. I mean, that's inconsequential. And they kill the Palestinians, period. So if you want to give them a name or define them by a group and say that it's so-and-so, Hezbollah or Hamas, whatever, this is just genocide. That's all it is. You know, that's crazy. It ain't no war. A war is not when you have 30,000 troops fully armed with fully automatic weapons against 10 people with 9. That's not a war. No. That's an execution. But that's not even my question. That's just to give clarity to the people on Zoom that this is all propaganda when Israel say it's fighting somebody. But I agree with you on the part that it could not exist without America.
Look, Israel won the war officially, those past wars. You don't know who was in them jets shooting at you. You don't know who dropped the bomb. But what we do know now is that they're at war and they're fighting the people in Gaza. They're fighting another group of Muslims or Arabs in the West Bank. Now
they're killing them.
They're killing them. Okay. The point I'm making is it was Israel, England, it was Israel, NATO fighting with, it was the United States and NATO fighting with Israel that beat the Arabs. All those wars that the Arabs lost up until this war, Israel didn't fight it. It was Europe, the European Union, the United States and Israel. They fought it together. Now, you have people who live in the area, have power. And the problem with Israel now is, even with the United States' help, the adversaries have equal or not, if not greater, military. And they're saying that if the war continues, they're not going to make it. Okay? So I'm not trying to predict it. All I'm saying is that the Jews won all of the wars except this one. And they said it was Israel, but it was Israel, it was United States, and it was European Union that won those wars for it. Now, you still have the full power of the United States there, but now you got too many other actors that have more than enough balance and power. Yes?
Yeah, just wanted to say that this was my original question. That I noticed that during the election, you kept saying the United States military, the United States government. I think you was really talking about NATO, because the United States has this configuration with all these other white European countries that assembled together to exploit the rest of the world. And when the Soviet Union broke up, and now it's just Russia, America was supposed to also disassemble NATO, but it's continued because it's oppressing the world, like you said. That 4% of the white world still has to squeeze out all the juice it can get from anybody else. So that's the situation. So it's really NATO. It's not America as much as it is NATO, and of course, America controls NATO. So whoever they got to beef with, so it's very refreshing, your lecture with respect to the African countries that are now forming a union, because what happened to Gaddafi should never have happened.
Correct.
What happened to Lumumba should never have happened. So for now, this young spirit that skipped a few generations that you see now in, in Niger and these other countries, it is just beautiful to see. Whatever way it goes, they've already won because they together. So even if they suffer some casualties along the way, sooner or later, Ghana and Kenya and these other countries will have to get on board because their people will remove them from power if they don't.
That's exactly right.
All right, Zoom audience, anybody from the Zoom?
Well, let them respond, Ray Ray.
Yes, Brother Ray Ray.
I thought you was making a comment. Was you asking a question or was you making a
Brother Ray Ray,
comment?
can you hear me?
Hold up.
I just wanted them to respond to that.
That was your question.
Okay.
Hold up. Yeah.
Okay. The way I'm going to attempt to answer the question is, the United States is fighting a war in Ukraine. It appears that Russia is fighting a war against Ukraine.
Right.
The Ukrainians are providing manpower for the war and nothing else.
That's it.
Anything else, any bullet, rocket, what you call surveillance, is all United States and Europe. So if Russia is winning, whatever that means, it's winning against the combined military structure of the United States and Europe, both. So, for instance, in order for Ukraine to target this missile to go and hit Russia, you have to have satellites, you have to have these, surveillance planes. The Europeans don't have this. Ukraine don't have it. The European doesn't have the satellite structure that Russia has, that U.S. has, and Russia, U.S., and China are the only one who really have that capacity. So for all the intelligence of where things are, it's all coming from the United States intelligence. So the war is being fought, Russia against the United States and Europe. Ukraine is providing NATO. Ukraine is providing the people, and all technology and weapons are being provided by NATO and the United States, primarily United States. The war is on for 2 or 3 years, and the European Union and the United States can't produce enough weapons. Russia, let me put it this way. World War II, the United States got rid of all its industry. Remember, they shipped it over. And they don't have a factory. Russia didn't do that. Russia kept their industrial base intact. At least, I make the assumption they're smart enough to say, I got enemies all around me. I can't afford to shut down the military that I need to protect my borders. The United States didn't have to worry about that. They have 2 oceans, they got no threat. So they did de-industrialize. And they decided to make weapons that don't work and is no damn good. How do you make an F-35 jet for $500,000 that damn it don't work?
It's in the scrapyard.
How? So what I'm saying is, I only can give my analysis.
Right.
Russia kept its industrial base intact. That's why they can build X amount of tanks, airplanes, everything. The United States has de-industrialized. Europe has de-industrialized. You're fighting an industrial war, and Russia is winning because they can't do it. So I'm just speculating, based upon what I see, that Israel would not have been able to beat the Arabs in all of these wars without direct and indirect help from, at this point, United States and NATO. Now Israel's fighting a war. The only one really who can help is U.S. But now the U.S. has a problem. You have the people in Gaza who's prepared. You have people in the West Bank prepared. You now have the Houthis hitting them with rockets. You now have Iran just hit Israel with a series of missile attacks to demonstrate they can wipe it out. Hezbollah can wipe it out right now, based upon what they tell you. Hezbollah and Iran could wipe Israel completely off the map. Israel's the size of New Jersey. Nothing. They have enough weapons there. If Russia, if what you call this, if Hezbollah's got 150,000 rockets, and Iran got in the thousands, they can wipe Israel off the map one day if they decided to. The problem they would have to do is Israel would use the, what they call it, the Samson thing with the nuclear. So anybody looking at this understand that Israel is doing very poorly now because the rest of the world has advanced. Now the United States is no longer the dominant country. Iran, the rest of them, they could see the Fifth Fleet in a day. The threat is, if you wipe out the United States or Israel, they're going to use a nuclear weapon. If there was no nuclear weapon, you didn't have to do that. They could take Israel and the United States military off the thing. If they still have it in Venezuela, those FT-130 bombers that shoot nothing but nuclear missiles that were housed in Venezuela, and they would come up the coast of the United States. Those 2 planes alone, if they still there, shoot nuclear missiles, they can wipe out the whole Caribbean, the Caribbean coast of the United States, eastern coast. Wipe the country off. That's the capacity, right? Russia, they say, have submarines.
Yeah.
So, you know what they made? Somebody made a slip. They said, the United States made a statement that in a full-scale war, that Europe is going to be devastated. Russia said, you forgot something. You going with them. You going to get it like the rest of us got it. If it comes down to that, you can't use nuclear weapons and everybody's dead. But if you come down to fighting just with conventional stuff, they could destroy this country. You see what happened when the subway goes out? See, the United States is so used to going around destroying everybody else. And the leaders of this country, maybe many of them can't come to the realization that they don't run the world anymore. You're not going to be able to invade these countries anymore. Nobody's using the dollar. Who are you going to make use the dollar? So, the world, that's the inflection point. I take it from the Brentwood when the Europeans, the English, the French, and US, they ran the show globally. They don't run the show anymore. The non-white countries got most of the firepower. They got most of the trade. And the country is shrinking.
Well, black folks ain't figured that out because they got us under control. All right, Zoom audience, anybody from the Zoom?
Yes.
Yes, I have a
sorry.
question, Ray.
Go ahead, question.
This is to Dr. Lewis. Hotep, Dr. Lewis.
Hotep.
Do you think that Kamala Harris will pick somebody of color to run with her on the Democratic ticket?
She already picked up VP.
Okay.
Small hat.
Let me just say this.
Who's that?
You speculate whatever you want. Biden is gone. You don't know what happened. Did he have a stroke? I was talking. Did he have a stroke? Can he talk?
Yes.
Did they tell him you bow out and we won't lock up your son and lock you up? You don't know what happened. All of a sudden he's out. Because with that thing when he had with Trump, the world saw that this man is not running anything. So they had to do that. So who's the next person? Kamala Harris. Okay. United States government. Okay, let's go back. There was an attempt on, who's this guy's life? Trump.
The Don.
When you look at that attempt, some people are coming up with the conclusion that it was a setup like JFK. One, how they said, this is what they're saying. I'm only repeating what I heard. Dr. Lewis didn't say this. I must mimic it. They said his regular crack Secret Service detail, they reassigned it. And they put all of these inexperienced people who didn't coordinate it. They say the line of fire. In other words, they say everything that you know you're supposed to do, they didn't do it. They said they saw him on the roof. They say this person has three, accounts overseas. So the speculation is, given the performance, some people are speculating he was supposed to be another Kennedy. How could you make these kind of mistakes? I'm not an analyst. All of the mistakes you were making. So what's the name? They keep saying, we're going to overthrow Russia, get rid of Russia. What did you get rid of Putin for? The President Obama, Trump, Biden, he's gone. They're trying to kill Trump. And anybody can have an accident. What's her name?
They get Carmel.
What's her name? I can't remember.
Kamala Harris.
Harris. You can heart attack, stroke. It's easy to kill people. We had a famous lawyer in our midst. Wasn't a damn thing wrong with him. Went to the hospital, and what happened the next day?
Gone.
What's his name? The brother. I can't think of it. His brother who died in the hospital. The Million Man March. Went to the hospital. Once when you go to the hospital, you ain't coming out. If a person like him, nah. He went in, he didn't come out. Alton went in, he didn't come out. I tell my wife, under no circumstance, unless it's an accident, bleeding or something, I'm not going to the damn hospital. Period.
Didn't come out. Next question from the floor. Rajid. Say it loud so the Zoom can hear you.
You spoke of the 5 different regions in Africa, and then you mentioned there was a sixth called the diaspora. Now, with the advent of the BRICS, will there be, or should there be, a conglomeration of African Americans to join this economic empire that's beginning outside of the mainstream United States?
I can't fully answer the question. The way I will answer it, they say you can join. You can register. Now, a certain group of us are in the process of finding out the limits of what you can do. That's the best answer I can give you. They want you to be part. Now, how you interact, you gotta work with them. Now, when you shut this thing down, I'll tell you a way. No, because
That was what I was talking about with the BRICS and getting a passport.
no, you see the point is,
But you can answer it off.
Okay, Lady B?
Yeah, I was just gonna make a couple
Yeah.
of comments.
that's the best I can do on that question. We'll go through it when it's shut down.
When you talk about the UN, Ralph Bunche, turning in his grave, the Nigerians were literally taught, was it the entire high school students, how to walk around with little things to make nuclear weapons. So I recall them writing about in the New York Times, they were the happiest people in the world. I knew that was the next people they was gonna attack once they said that. And sure enough, then it was, oh, they're the scammers, they're this, but the Nigerians are no nonsense. They not gonna just run up on them and beat them. Let me see what else. Dr. Arakana.
Go on.
Dr. Arakana. The lady from the UN
Yeah.
that they had
To push out.
fired, right?
Yeah.
She continued. She told everyone, you join. She said, what do you do in the United States of Africa? She's married to a South African. She's from Zimbabwe.
No, what's the name of husband? That's what she said.
Okay, so what
That doesn't matter.
tell us what she said,
Okay.
what you can do?
She's doing something like the UNIA. She told everyone to put in $100, this and that. Pretty much the same as right now, they raised $80 billion for this woman who could care less about any one of us. They're saying black men did it, which could also be propaganda. Why didn't we all put this money towards black women, doing things for ourselves? And that would be a simultaneous Dr. Bailey. Let me see, what else? The ICC court said that Israel is wrong, stop all monies and so forth, and, it's time to shut them down. They were dead wrong, they lost the court case, which is, excellent and fair. This wasn't that much.
That's it? Because that really doesn't matter, because Israel loses all the time, and America blocks any action that can be taken against it, so that's all.
The ICC court is over, they're not listening to America, now whole world.
Ain't nobody listening.
The ICC.
No, they don't.
It's
They don't have to listen.
And the woman,
You comment on the ICC.
what is the woman that got caught, and she said, the lady in Israel, what she said, they were having a world, the Israel leaders were having She said, take all those black people and put them more or less in a concentration camp. King Alfred Flag, but no, she said point blank, the more or less Afro Israelites in Israel, put them all with these people in Gaza, put them in concentration camp. More or less, she was suggesting point blank, kill them or put them in that concentration camp.
Okay. All right, that's it.
You can buy land, an acre of land in Liberia, $4,000. You build one. All right, that's it for me.
Zoom audience, last call, Zoom. Okay, everybody give Dr. Lewis a great big hand. Okay, I'm gonna cut the camera off, and Doc is gonna say a few words that's not gonna be recorded. Zoom audience is not gonna be recorded, so he's gonna say a few words. Let me cut the camera off. It's game over. Give Dr. Lewis again a great big hand. Hold up, Doc.